Days after delivering atomic bomb parts, USS Indianapolis vanished. Hundreds survived the sinking, but no rescue force was coming. For days, no organized search began. How could a scheduled warship simply disappear? The men were spotted by chance, not by a rescue patrol. The secret mission was not the reason. The first clue was ashore, a tracking system that never turned a missed arrival into an alarm. That distinction matters. Rescuers did come, but only after a routine patrol aircraft saw men and an oil slick below. Until that sighting, no one was conducting a search for Indianapolis. The delay was already more than 3 days old. The popular explanation says the cruiser was so secret that nobody knew where she was. It is dramatic and wrong. Her classified cargo had been delivered. Her next destination, route, and expected movement were known to Navy commands ashore. The real failure was less cinematic. Damaged communications at sea met weak reporting ashore, and a missing ship produced no alarm. To understand that chain, begin with the ship itself, not as a doomed victim, but as a veteran fleet flagship. Indianapolis had fought across the Pacific, supported Iwo Jima and Okinawa, and earned 10 battle stars before July 1945. At Okinawa, a kamikaze damaged her stern. Repairs at Mare Island put the cruiser in position for an urgent new assignment. On July 16th, she left San Francisco carrying components and uranium for Little Boy. The bomb later dropped on Hiroshima. Most sailors did not know what was inside. Their orders demanded speed, and Indianapolis crossed to Pearl Harbor at remarkable pace. Then she continued west. The route was documented. Indianapolis left San Francisco on July 16th, reached Pearl Harbor, delivered the cargo at Tinian, then called at Guam. The fatal leg to Leyte was a normal operational movement. This the first myth to remove. Secrecy surrounded the cargo, but the cargo was no longer aboard when the ship sank. On Tinian, the mission ended successfully. Indianapolis then sailed to Guam, received routine orders, and headed for Leyte. Shore staffs did not need to know what she had carried. They needed only to track where she was expected next. That ordinary administrative duty would matter more than the extraordinary object already unloaded hundreds of miles behind her. There was another ordinary duty before departure: decide whether a fast cruiser needed protection against submarines. Indianapolis carried powerful guns, but she had no modern underwater detection equipment and no destroyer escort assigned. So, why did the Navy send her alone? The paperwork shows confidence in the route, but not safety in any absolute sense. At Guam, McVay was told submarine danger on the route was considered negligible. No escort joined his ship. A heavy cruiser could outrun many submarines on the surface, but speed was protection only before an unseen submarine reached firing position. American intelligence had indications of Japanese submarine activity, including I-58's deployment, that were not passed to McVay. This was I-58, a large Japanese submarine commanded by Lieutenant Commander Mochitsura Hashimoto, already hunting across the Philippine Sea. Days earlier, another Japanese submarine had destroyed the escort ship Underhill in the broader region. That warning never became McVay's warning. This does not prove a conspiracy or a deliberate sacrifice. It shows compartmented intelligence and optimistic route assessment. Later accounts often say McVay formally requested an escort and was refused. The safer conclusion is narrower. None was assigned. An escort might have deterred attack, detected a submarine, or raised an immediate alarm. It could not guarantee survival. Indianapolis therefore entered the route as a single fast ship, relying on darkness, speed, lookouts, and changing visibility. Her orders allowed McVay to zigzag at his discretion, especially as visibility and tactical conditions changed. That detail would later dominate his trial. But it was not what placed EE-58 in the sea ahead. Nor did zigzagging create a protective wall. It made an attack harder by changing course and forcing repeated calculations. Its value depended on when the submarine saw the target, range, visibility, and whether the firing solution was already complete. Near midnight, on July 29th, Hashimoto saw a dark silhouette approaching. He believed it might be a battleship and submerged to attack. The question was now physical. Could Indianapolis evade torpedoes already being aimed? Hashimoto fired 6 conventional torpedoes. 2 hit Indianapolis on the starboard side within moments of one another. The first tore away much of the bow. The second damaged machinery, electrical power, and communications deep inside the ship. Hashimoto's own attack sketch shows an established approach and firing line, not a last-second shot caused by one straight course. He later testified that zigzagging would not have prevented a successful attack. That evidence did not absolve every command decision. The first impact tore into the bow. The second struck near the machinery spaces. Power and internal communications failed. At about 12 minutes, Indianapolis rolled steeply and disappeared. There was no orderly window in which to launch a complete distress and rescue procedure. The abandoned ship order had to be passed by voice. Many life rafts and boats could not be released in time. Men jumped through fuel oil, wreckage, and darkness. Many who escaped the hull were burned, injured, or barely clothed. About 12 minutes after the first hit, the cruiser was gone. Hundreds entered the water. Hundreds more died with her. Here the famous numbers need care. Contemporary lists were reconstructed after the ship, and its records went down. 317 survived became the familiar phrase. A 2018 Navy review found 316 rescued from 1,195 aboard. That is one person's difference, but it matters. The revised loss was 879 sailors and Marines. None of those figures explains why the surviving men remained unseen. For that, return to the radio rooms and offices ashore. Radio men tried to send distress traffic, but the explosions had cut power, damaged antennas, and wrecked internal communications. One operator believed his keyed message never left. Another saw a meter move slightly and thought transmission might be possible. The 1945 inquiry found no evidence that a distress message had been received by any ship, aircraft, or shore station. Decades later came stories of 3 stations hearing an SOS and ignoring it through drunkenness, sleep, or fear of deception. Navy historians investigated those claims but found no corroborating contemporary traffic logs. They remain allegations, not established fact. Even a failed SOS, however, should not have erased a scheduled ship. Indianapolis had an expected destination. The decisive shoreside failure was that missing Leyte did not automatically become an emergency. 3 failures must be kept separate. The ship probably could not transmit. No verified distress message triggered action ashore. And when Indianapolis missed Leyte, the movement reporting system did not turn that absence into an alarm. Wartime ships were sometimes diverted, delayed, or rerouted. Staff could assume another command knew more, and responsibility blurred across offices. At Leyte, the overdue cruiser was noticed administratively, but the absence was not escalated into an air and sea search. This is the answer hidden inside the title. Nobody came because no command had converted "not arrived" into "ship missing." The danger report, escort decision, radio failure, and overdue procedure were separate weaknesses. Together, they removed every early trigger. McVay could influence his ship's course. He could not control what intelligence reached him or how shore commands tracked arrival, nor could the men in the water know that their ship's absence was being absorbed as routine uncertainty. They expected aircraft. They expected ships. Each engine sound or distant shape could open hope and then close it again. By then, groups had drifted apart across miles of sea, making any eventual rescue harder and the casualty count less certain. The next question is unavoidable. If sharks were not the whole story, what was killing the men hour by hour? The answer began with the torpedoes. Many survivors entered the water already burned, cut or coated in fuel. Others had only life jackets or crowded rafts. Daylight brought heat and thirst. Night brought cold. Salt water worsened dehydration and could drive confusion, hallucination, and collapse. Some men drowned, some died from wounds or exposure, and some were attacked by sharks. The proportions cannot be reconstructed precisely. That uncertainty matters because the shark story can swallow the human one. Different groups experienced different danger, and records were incomplete. Survivors remembered officers, corpsmen, and shipmates organizing groups, sharing flotation, and trying to stop men from drinking the sea. No reliable source can give an exact shark death toll. The evidence supports some, not a sensational number presented as fact. On August 2nd, Lieutenant Wilbur Gwynn was flying a PV-1 Ventura on routine patrol when he looked down at an oil slick. The shapes inside it were men. Gwynn transmitted the report that finally turned a missing ship into a rescue emergency. Lieutenant Adrian Marks arrived in a PBY flying boat, dropped supplies, then chose to land in heavy seas despite the danger to his aircraft. Marks and his crew pulled men inside and tied others across the wings. They kept 56 alive until ships arrived. The destroyer escort Cecil J. Doyle came first, using a searchlight as a beacon despite possible submarine danger. Other ships joined through the night. Rescue was not absent forever. It began only after chance had supplied the missing alarm. The famous total says 317 survived. The current Navy accounting says 316 were rescued. Both numbers appear because one roster error lasted decades. Clarence Donner had briefly boarded before departure, then left for new orders. Later lists wrongly counted him among ship and survivors. Correcting one name does not diminish the ordeal. It honors the people who were actually aboard by keeping the record exact. The photographs after rescue show sunburn, injuries, and exhaustion. They require no invented shark total to communicate what happened. Yet official attention soon shifted from the system that lost the ship to the captain who had been standing on its bridge. Captain Charles McVay survived. Within months, the Navy charged him with hazarding Indianapolis by failing to zigzag. The Navy also charged him with delaying abandoned ship. He was acquitted of that count, but convicted on zigzagging. Hashimoto was brought from Japan to testify. The man who fired the torpedoes said zigzagging would not have saved Indianapolis. McVay's orders did give him discretion under changing visibility. His decision could be debated, but it did not explain the absent escort, missing intelligence, or failed search trigger. Admiral Nimitz considered a reprimand sufficient. McVay's sentence was eventually remitted, and he later retired as a rear admiral. But the conviction remained a public burden. Survivors spent decades arguing that their captain had become the disaster's convenient focus. McVay died by suicide in 1968 after years of grief and hostile letters. State this plainly, without pretending one cause is provable. Later action restored his reputation in public memory, but the legal history is more precise than the word exonerated suggests. Congress declared that McVay should be cleared, and the Navy added language to his service file. No new court formally vacated the wartime judgment. The verdict was never formally erased by a new court. Congress called for McVay's exoneration in 2000, and in 2001, the Navy placed a statement in his record affirming his lack of culpability. In 2017, the wreck was found. In 2018, the crew count was corrected. The wreck lay about 5,500 meters deep, roughly 35 miles from the position long used in the official record. Its discovery confirmed the ship's final resting place, but the site remains a Navy war grave, not a source of spectacle. The simplest answer is therefore not sharks, secrecy, or one captain. Each explains only a fragment, or a myth. Indianapolis was lost to I-58. Her survivors were then left exposed by damaged radio, weak tracking, divided responsibility, and assumptions ashore. No one came because inside the system, no one had yet made the missing ship visible. The men were saved when one pilot looked down. The lesson is to build systems that do not depend on that kind of luck. Remember the ship and the failures that let her disappear.